G'day, how are you? Doing well? Righto. Let's just get this out the way, okay? Charlie bit my finger. A dingo ate my baby. It's good to be here. I always love, I've been to Minnesota 3 times this year and I love coming back every time, even in the winter. So it's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me. You want to see a photo of my family? Obviously. Look at that, eh? Estrogen. Did you hear that? Right, that's my wife Cameron. That's my baby Kiara. Kiara Luce, we named her after Blessed Kiara Luce. That's Avila and Liam. Liam has more energy than 1,000 gazelles. Avila is just weird. My son and I have these deep philosophical conversations at night. You know, I try and teach Liam that, how God doesn't have a body, And so like we'll be talking about that for a bit and then Avila will go, Dad, what? If I shut my mouth, I can't speak. That's right. That's right, Avila, yeah. So we know we're investing our money into Liam, all right? But that is Kiara. Now, if a child was ever so cute that you needed to kick it, I mean, that would be it, wouldn't it? Uccia Mariana, Bogushka, Gushka. I don't even speak Italian. I don't know what that was. She's great. All right, check it out. That's us on our wedding day. Isn't that good? Why are you clapping? Why are you clapping? Congratulations on being so handsome. It's just fine. The cool thing about wedding photos is that I'll never look that good again. Right, now check it out. That's me. Not great looking, but not terrible. You know what I mean? I'd probably rate me a 7.5. You know what I mean? Not bad, right? But I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Fat app and the Bald app on the phone, Fat Booth, this stuff. Right, so if I continue to eat wheat, I'm going to look like that. No, not like that. Like that. Okay? Isn't that nice? And then I don't know, the way things are going, the way this hairline seems to be receding, give it another 10 years and I'll look like... Now, hang on, don't laugh. That's mean, all right? It's not bad. 30, 40 years from now, you're welcome. So that's kind of what my wife has to look forward to anyway, isn't it? Several years ago, I was in Ireland doing ministry. That's actually how I met my wife. We were part of Net Ministries in Ireland, running retreats. Yes, go Net Ministries. The first day I arrived, I understood 2 things very quickly. One, I don't understand Irish people when they speak to me. I was trying to get to know the teens, before the retreat. I was like, g'day, mate, how you going? Oh, I believe Mike and Dave, guys. So, yeah, no, what? I don't. Secondly, they use words differently to us, right? One of the words they use differently is the word crack, C-R-A. Settle down. Sorry, I don't know. Blah. Crack. Right, we're good. C-R-A-I-C. It's Irish for fun, okay? So the day we are in Ireland, my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, but she goes over to the young girls in the corner and tries to get to know them. Make them like us before we tell them about Jesus. That was the goal. And she said, how are you? And they said, is there going to be any crack on this retreat today? By which my wife thought them to mean cocaine. So she's like, she thought they were being smart, you know. She's like, no, there's not going to be any crack on today's retreat. No crack. You guys seem like you're full of crack. Yeah, all right. I know we might seem like we're full of crack, but what you are witnessing is the pure joy of the Holy Spirit, okay? It's 100% natural, so. At this point, the lovely little Irish posse caught on to what the confusion. And she said, no, crack is fun. No, crack is not fun. True story. It may seem like fun right now, but later on, it'll get you, you know? No, it's Irish for fun. It's not fun anywhere, all right? My wife was so thoroughly confused, so convinced that what they meant by crack was crack cocaine, that nothing that these sweet little Irish girls could have said could have convinced her otherwise, all right? And I think sometimes you and I become so familiar with concepts and terms that they start to lose their meaning. I remember as a kid, I would lay in bed and I'd repeat a word. I was in a country town, didn't have much to do. And I'd repeat a word over and over to myself until it lost its meaning. You ever done that? So for example, this thing here, you called a finger. We called a finger, right? So I remember laying in bed and going, finger, 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 finger. Or wallet, that's another one. Wallet, 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 wallet. And as I'm saying it, the concept is evaporating from the term wallet, wallet. I'm like, that is not a word. There's no way wallet is a wallet. That's a silly word, you know. All right, well, this whole weekend we have been saying, He chose us. And you hear that, and you go, oh yeah, no, that's right. Like, really? Do we really understand what that means? Again, I think we can become so familiar with a concept that it almost becomes an obstacle to understanding it in a deeper way. He chose us. Think about this. God, this explains everything, doesn't it? He chose us. He created the world. There was no need of this. He didn't create it out of justice. He owed us nothing. He didn't create it out of necessity. He has no need for us. As Chris Stefanik said last night, it's this overflow of God's love. He reveals himself to the Jewish people. And then get this, right? God becomes man. Now that should just knock you over. God became a fetus. God the zygote, God the embryo, God the fetus, God the toddler. That's crazy. Crazy but true. It explains Calvary. He chose us on Calvary. He bought a twofold right on Calvary. The right for him to love us despite our deep misery, and the right for us to love him even in our misery. The Eucharist. The Eucharist is insane as the incarnation, isn't it? I mean, yeah, that's Jesus, but this is the truth of our faith. Tonight, I want to talk about you and I choosing him. We've spoken a lot about the fact that he has chosen us. But, that only goes so far. If you don't choose him, well, that's the end of the story. It's sort of like my really beautiful wife, when I proposed to her, it's like, I'm choosing you above all else forever, Well, she could have said no, and that would have been the end, But she said yes, and the journey began. Perhaps your journey has begun prior to tonight. Perhaps it's beginning again, or maybe getting a little more energy. But tonight, let's choose Christ. Now, what does that look like? Well, I want to share with you how I came to choose Christ. When I was about 8 years old, I started asking those big questions in life, Does God exist? I would ask these questions like, if you went all the way up in a rocket, like, would you ever come to an end, Would there be a point which you can't stretch your hand out? And what is that? Is it a wall? What's behind the wall? I'm freaking out. I'm 8 years old in my bed, right? And I would bring these deep questions to my mum and my grandma, the Catholics in the family. My dad wasn't. And I'd say, hey, Mum, like, why is there evil in the world? Mystery. Righto, good, thank you. How do I reconcile that? I wasn't using that big language, but they always seem to punt to mystery. I don't know, mystery. All right, good. I think you just don't know, I was coming to the point where I thought God probably doesn't exist. God is probably like a story, like we call it Father Christmas, you call it Santa Claus, right? A nice little story to make children behave, Metaphysical sugar daddy up in the clouds is going to give you a theme park when you're dead. This is how I thought maybe God was. So I was coming to the conclusion that God probably didn't exist, although I couldn't get rid of that idea entirely. Atheism hadn't morphed into what it means today, which is basically agnosticism parading on, doesn't matter. If atheism had have meant what it did today, I probably would have claimed to be an atheist, like a shorthand way of saying I'm smarter than you. But it didn't mean that back then. So I was an agnostic because that sounded more spiritual, whatever that meant. So one day, a good friend of mine, Carla Bella Femini, how Italian is that? Bella Femini. Her grandparents, right? Her two granddads. Actually, her granddad and her granddad's brother. Mario and Luigi. True story. True story. I loved Carla because she loved asking those deep questions about life, Sometimes we would stare at each other, and I remember saying this, Carla, how come I'm not in your body looking at me, and you're not in my body looking at you? Although if you were in my body looking at you, you wouldn't be you, I'd be. Yeah. We'd have these just deep conversations, man. I loved it. Now, one day she came over to my house to go rollerblading. Then I'm like 12 years old, strapping on the old rollerblades. Short shorts. White skinny legs. And just loving life, really, And at one point, Carla said, do you mind if we talk? I said, yeah, sure. So we sat down on the curb. He called it a curb? Curb. And I'm about 12. And she starts sharing with me that she doesn't like living and she's not sure why she should continue to live. Right. Well, I'm 13 and I've just learnt how to do that with my armpit. So I'm like, if this doesn't help, I've got nothing. I'm not sure if you can use this, if it means anything. No, right. I'm kind of freaking out. I'm looking at her going, Carla, you're beautiful. She's like, uh-huh, do better. Well, next year we're going to go to high school. She's like, uh-huh, yeah, that'll be good. And then we'll get our driving license. Now, I don't know if you do this in America, maybe from small country towns, but the small country town I'm from, this is what you do when you get your license. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. So what you do is you go on the main road of your town and you drive up and down it. Looking for action. I'm so glad you understood that. I've said that in like big cities and people don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what you mean. Well, that just killed 5 minutes of content. But yeah, driving up and down. And you remember there's always those guys who get the really fancy cars. And you're not sure how they got them, are you? Because they make about as much money as you do, nothing. There's this Australian comedian called Carl Barron in Australia. And he says, isn't it funny how when they see a cute girl, they always accelerate a little bit? As if the girl's gone, Johnny just accelerated. So Carla, we get to do that? I mean, that's going to be great. She's like, yeah, okay, cool. Then what? I will finish high school, go to university, get a job maybe, you can get married, Carla. She's like, uh-huh. You can call your kids Mario and Luigi. I'm indiscriminate, really. You choose the names. Then what? You'll be a grandma, and then you'll die, I guess. Whatever, gosh. And she looked at me when I said die, as if to say, now do you get it? And I remember something sinking in me. And I wasn't able to articulate it as a 12-year-old, but now I am. And that's this, that if atheism is true, then certain other things follow necessarily. Namely, you and I have been coughed into existence by a blind cosmic process which did not have us in mind. We are the result of matter plus time plus chance, and there is no objective meaning or purpose to the universe. None. All of us will die, both individually and collectively as a species. Everything we do, none of it matters. We can pretend that it matters. We can sort of say, well, the purpose of my life is to do this. That's not really the purpose of your life. Sort of like children dressing up like policemen, thinking they're doing something important, but they're really not. It's just sort of cute. But this is it. This is the world we live in. Now, just because it's depressing doesn't mean it's false. But I began to think about why it was I was leaning towards atheism. Especially when, if atheism is true, there is no objective meaning, and yet I wanted there to be meaning. I made fun of Christians and took meaning from that. I tried to give meaning to people's lives by saying, no, God probably doesn't exist. But there's no meaning, As I grew a little older, just started to go downhill, honestly. I did the whole thing. I know it's hard to believe looking at me now, but I dressed all in black. I would graffiti Satan and stuff on my... I know that sounds so dramatic, but I did it on my school. 666, Matthew Fradd, as if I'm doing that, Wasn't fooling anybody. I was 14. All right, Satan! Come on, stop it. But I was just looking for attention. Just somebody notice me. Someone give me something real. One day my mum came home from Mass, and I'd stopped going. She said, Matt, there was this lady at Mass today. She was speaking about World Youth Day, which will be taking place in Italy in this year, 2000. And do you want to go? I thought it was a trick question. Do I want to go to Italy? Yes, please. Yes, what do you want? They said, well, it's World Youth Day, the Pope will be there. I went, it'll be fine, there'll be about 2 million people. It's a lot of ladies. And this is what my mum said. But now listen, Matthew, we're not paying all this money. This is her accent, in case you were wondering why I started speaking differently. Now, Matthew, yes, not paying all this money for you to go make a bloody idiot of yourself. Well, all right, thanks for your high expectations in your son. Up until this point in my life, I don't remember meeting Christians that didn't wig me out. Small town, the only Christians I knew, dressed funny, smelled like cabbage, that kind of thing. What's your favorite verse in the Bible? How about you back away from me? How does that sound? You know how I told you we'd drive up and down this piece of road? Like that? Well, there was this evangelical group that had this hot dogs. They'd sell hot dogs there. For free, not sell them, they'd give them to you for free. But they'd always want to tell you about Jesus. And we were all poor because we used all our money on gas, So it's I don't have any money for McDonald's. How about we just go get a sausage? And they'd say, yeah, but they're going to talk to you about Jesus. I went, I know, but I'm really hungry. And we go in there, and they're like, hey, man. They'd be all happy, happy Christians. G'day, mate, how are you? Oh. Anyway, all of a sudden I'm in Sydney surrounded by young, intelligent, confident Catholics. I get on this plane and I am so surprised that they look normal, that they're intelligent, they accepted everything that their church taught. I'm like, you're saving sex till marriage. I'm like, yeah, but you're good looking. Why would you do that? I didn't understand, And as we travel, it's like a 30-hour trip. And so I started asking the bloke sitting next to me, who was actually the roommate of the late Heath Ledger. This guy, he was this guy here. Right, just here, this one. Hello. Moving on. Sorry. His name was Brendan. I said, do you believe in God? He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. He started sharing with me about how he was hooked on cocaine and meth, I think. And he said one day someone brought him to church, someone prayed over him, and by God's grace he began to heal from that and is now free. It's difficult to mock people when they're confident and kind, isn't it? Oh, you're an idiot. That's not very nice. Why would you say that? Because I'm insecure. I remember he said to me, do you believe in God? And I said something that I wish I could take back. I said something that if I was around Chris Stefanik and said it, he'd slap me, and rightly so. I said this, and I thought it was wise. I said this, ready? I believe everyone needs something to believe in. Oh, Confucius, you blew my mind. That's what I said. Righto. So we get to Rome. These people are full of life and full of joy. In Mass, they're on their knees before the Blessed Sacrament, And they all seem to be really into it. I just have a sore bottom. I'm not really into this at all. I remember saying, do you really believe that that's Jesus? I said, yeah. You don't? I said, I don't know if I believe that's bread. But I can tell that you believe that that's Jesus, and I think that's awesome. I began praying the first sincere prayer of my life. It was something to the effect of, God, if you exist, would you show me? Would you reveal yourself to me in a way that I would understand? Because I'm slow, so just break it down. Now, one thing that I didn't want to happen, I didn't want to go to like a nice little meeting where we'd all sing songs and get all emotional and call that God. That warm, fuzzy, that was God. Maybe, but probably not. It may have just been sort of crowd-induced hysteria. But whatever. And I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to kind of trade in that intellectual integrity for that, But there was this point in Mass. There was a number of points, but golly, there was one point where I experienced the living Christ, and it changed my life. Ruined it, really. I thought I was doing okay. He sort of gave me a roundhouse kick to the face, and I fell over. Everything looked different, I was living on a different plane of reality. C.S. Lewis put it this way. He said, I believe in Christianity like I believe the sun has risen. Not just because I can see the sun, but because by it I see everything else. All of a sudden it sort of all clicked in line. The reason creation appears to be created is that it has a creator. The reason objective moral values appear to be binding on us is because there's an objective moral lawgiver. The reason virtually every society of human beings in the history of mankind has believed in God or something like God might be because something like God exists, namely God. Maybe, And I tell you what, it was a beautiful encounter with Christ. Now, people will often say to you, God loves you as you are, and of course that's true. But what I came to realize is that God loves us as we are, and too much to leave us that way. You see, love is at war with whatever is against the beloved. How's that for a tweet? You don't even have to hashtag me. Love is at war with whatever is against the beloved. Think about it. Liam, my son, if he came home 15 years from now and I find out he's hooked on crack, do you think I would say, oh, mate, that's all right, I love you as you are? No. I'd shout and scream and shake him and try and talk sense into him. Because love is at war with whatever is against the beloved. Now, there were patterns of behavior, sin in my life that needed to go. Absolutely. I remember coming back from Rome and no longer wanting to believe something because it made me feel good. I wanted to believe something because it was true. Do you see? My sister was an atheist when I returned and was so for the next 5 years of her life. And we had so many conversations, and she was so miserable, hooked on drugs, and she was a hardcore atheist and impure relationships and stuff. And she came to the Lord a couple of years ago, and she described it to me like this. She said, all that stuff I was seeking, that sin, it was like I thought it was water to satiate me, but it was drowning me. She said, I'm done drinking the water that's drowning me. I'm climbing out of the well. Tonight, I want to invite you to accept Christ. What does it mean to accept Christ? Well, let's look at some of the effects. When we come to Christ, we are saved, primarily through baptism. The only way you can be saved is if you're first hopeless. It's not like Christ helps us, that we could have done it, but he gave us a hand. No, he saved us. He forgives us. He enlightens us and he heals us. Amen? Amen. But listen to me. In order to be saved, you must first be hopeless, right? In order to be forgiven, you first have to be wrong. You can't forgive someone if they're not wrong. It would be wrong of you to forgive them if they weren't wrong. You first have to be wrong, or else you can't be forgiven, all right? In order to be enlightened, you and I must first accept that we are ignorant. In order to be healed, we must first be broken. But how many of us are willing to accept that? Yeah, my name's Matthew, and I am hopeless, broken, ignorant, and just a mess, really, to be quite honest with you. But tonight, as the Blessed Sacrament comes around, Christ himself, just be that, just be who you are, just like, this is me, This is it. I give it to you, Christ, and I want to accept you. And I don't know exactly what that means, but I know that I want to accept you. Or I know that I want to accept you,